Is your church anxiety friendly? That's what we'll be talking about today. We'll be discussing how many people all around you in your community find themselves struggling with anxiety, social anxiety in particular, and I'll be sharing some considerations that you might be interested in hearing in order to hopefully make some changes in the way that you organize your church events, or maybe you can be influential in the church that you find yourself in and be able to share some valuable insight concerning this topic with the leaders in your church. Okay, so I will be sharing some statistics having to do with social anxiety, and you can find everything that I'm reading in the link in the description below. And I'm getting this information from Anxiety and Depression Association of America, adaa.org. Here they have some statistics, and first I'm going to read to you their section under Did You Know? Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults in the United States age 18 and older, or 18.1% of the population every year. Anxiety disorders are highly treatable, yet only 36.9% of those suffering receive treatment. People with an anxiety disorder are 3 to 5 times more likely to go to the doctor and 6 times more likely to be hospitalized for psychiatric disorders than those who do not suffer from anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders develop from a complex set of risk factors, including genetics, brain chemistry, personality, and life events. It's not uncommon for someone with an anxiety disorder to also suffer from depression or vice versa. Nearly 1/2 of those diagnosed with depression are also diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. So here we have some facts. Generalized anxiety disorder, or for short GAD, affects 6.8 million adults, or 3.1% of the U.S. population, yet only 43.2% are receiving treatment. Women are twice as likely to be affected as men. GAD often co-occurs with major depression. Panic disorder, short PD. PD affects 6 million adults, or 2.7% of the U.S. population. Women are twice as likely to be affected as men. And there are other things that you can read more about on this website, but the one I really want us to focus on for today is social anxiety disorder, SAD, affects 15 million adults, or 6.8% of the U.S. population. SAD is equally common among men and women and typically begins around age 13. According to a 2007 ADAA survey, 36% of people with social anxiety disorder report experiencing symptoms for 10 or more years before seeking help. Although I am not someone with a professional degree on this topic, I am someone that has personally dealt with some of these things for a lot of my life. So I'll be speaking out of experience and out of a perspective that is knowledgeable based on my own experiences or the experiences that I've heard throughout time. The way one person experiences anxiety and the things they feel they can do and can't do, I'm sure that they vary from person to person. So you'll be hearing one perspective in this video, but feel free to do your own research or listen to the people in your life that are suffering from anxiety or depression to learn more about other perspectives. So I would like us to discuss today, aside from the social anxiety statistics that we just read, I want us to think practically. And before going there, I would like to say that from my perspective, having read these statistics, I think it's so true that people go through a long time in their life before seeking help. And it's unfortunate. Maybe it's because there's a negative stigma with people that have to take medication, or there's fears about taking medication. Maybe you just really want to feel like you can handle it on your own. There might be a lot of other reasons, but for my own experience, that's true, that a person will wait until they just can't handle it anymore, and hopefully they will turn to a healthy solution to their problem. And hopefully they have support from the people in their life. All of the statistics about the amount of people, it sounds like, whoa, like millions. We're talking about millions of people in the United States that are dealing with this. It's not like it's just, if you're dealing with anxiety, like you are so weird. It's not like you are the only person in, for example, your state that is dealing with this. So who knows how many people in where you live are dealing with this right along with you. But at the same time, when you hear how many more people around you do not deal with this, it makes it seem like, yeah, you are like within the minority of people that are dealing with this. And it can feel very intimidating to hear that statistic personally. So there's pros and cons to these statistics. On one hand, you can feel like, good, I'm not alone in my experience. And at the same time, it's like, okay, so although I'm not alone, more people are not experiencing what I am. Those are just my initial impressions from the statistics that we just read. What was interesting to me was that although anxiety in general is more common with women, reading that social anxiety is equally common among men and women is so relevant in this discussion. So that's comforting to hear that what I'm going to discuss today about the experiences of people that are dealing with social anxiety, it's equal. So it's very relevant to both women and men. If anyone is listening to this video and you're just thinking, wait, but these people need to learn to be able to do these things, and these people need to get the help, and they need to learn to be in this world where the majority of people are functioning in a certain way, and they need to overcome their struggles. I would like for you to pay closer attention to everything I'm going to say, because it's not as simple as that. And although ultimately I do agree that we do need to support people and help them to be able to come to a healthy place in their own personal lives where they are able to function alongside of everyone else, I think that the Bible tells us to be considerate of other people. And so that includes people with challenges when it comes to anxiety. It might not be your personal struggle, but it is someone else's. And I think we can get some application from the place in the Bible where we learn about if something would be like a stumbling block for my brother or my sister, then I need to be considerate of them, because I want for their well-being. I want for them to have a good relationship with God. So in that sense, I think we can apply it to people that are having a weakness with anxiety. And so although we can just continue to do things as normal as it's been traditionally done, if we can make some changes, some considerations for the betterment of the people that are struggling with social anxiety, then I think we can make a biblical case for why we ought to do that. Let's go ahead and talk about if we are being considerate of people dealing with social anxiety, and assume that I'm also talking about depression, as the article made the point that these two things usually go hand in hand. When we come together on Sundays as the church, all the decisions that have gone into how that should look, the seating arrangement, the order, the things we do during these gatherings, all of these things, I want us to really think about what the experience might be like for a person that has social anxiety, as opposed to someone that it's like not even a thought in their mind about how that would be challenging and difficult to them personally. Going to, for example, a large church. I live in California, and there are some large churches in California. The benefits are they have so many great programs, and they're very organized usually, nice quality, everything usually. But when you sit down in the middle of so many, like hundreds or maybe even thousands of people, to sing, to listen, you have to sit there quietly and listen to someone speak for like usually 30 minutes or more. It can be pretty intimidating for someone that deals with anxiety, social anxiety. To be in a place with so many people, your mind will just be racing as to why you are so uncomfortable in that situation, and just pretty much self-talk, encouraging yourself to just stay there for a few more minutes. The preacher's almost done. What can I do to make myself like just, calm my thoughts? Maybe I should get up, go use the restroom, but then a bunch of people are going to look at me. But I really need just a mental break from everything that's going on in my mind. And so you come back again. Okay, maybe you can get through the last part of the message. But as you can see, this is not probably the best option for someone that is showing up to church in order to learn what the speaker is saying, but they're having a difficult time just concentrating because of how things are structured. I went to one church in particular where there was an option. So there was a room for nursing mothers, and they had a screen there, and you could just be there however long you wanted. But obviously sometimes the moms would be talking, so it's really hard to focus. And then there was another room where parents could sit there with their child. It was called the crying room. So it was a great consideration, right? And it's a room that we took advantage of very often, because babies and toddlers seem to think that when everything is quiet, that's the time for them to talk. So we would go to that room, and there would be screens, and that would be usually a more quieter room, ironically, even though it was called the crying room. But again, kind of distracting, but nice that they considered that. And then they had, I guess you would call it a lobby in the back of the church. And I didn't understand why people would prefer to sit in the back of the church instead of going inside the church. But come to think about it, now I think a lot of those people were suffering from social anxiety, because it wasn't just parents sitting out there. It was just a regular, wife, husband with their Bibles, and they were being quiet in that area, looking at screens. So now it makes sense. Oh, that was a really nice option for people that felt overwhelmed by being in a large environment with a lot of people. And maybe those people felt that they could handle it better without feeling like everyone is looking at them, which is a symptom that I guess can occur with social anxiety. They could just be in a more casual setting and just feel less anxiety. Less people around, they could focus more. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but that was a good option for people that dealt with social anxiety, in my opinion. So are we considering these people during Sundays? How about during the weekdays when we usually find opportunities like community groups, life groups? How are we structuring these socializing events, fellowship events, They usually are smaller gatherings so that people can get to know each other better. But if you're dealing with like really strong social anxiety, even that is very difficult for someone that's struggling in that department to participate in. Again, usually these things are structured where like everyone is sitting around each other and it's quiet, and so it's kind of a stressful scenario for some people. Bible studies as well. Usually the setting is smaller, but it's still the same setting. So I think that church is set up mostly for people that are not suffering from anxiety or depression. It's almost like we assume that people are not dealing with these things and that they can just come and be a part of how everyone else is gathering. So, really quick, what can we do? I already mentioned how there was one church that provided a lot of opportunities for different scenarios. And I think that's a good place to start. And I think it's important for us to consider making changes, no matter how small or large your gatherings are, because we will be ultimately promoting more participation and making our gatherings more welcoming for all people, including people dealing with sometimes these people are the ones that need church and fellowship more than the people that are not struggling with anxiety and depression. So we need to consider them, and maybe they will want to come to church or participate in other ways because they feel that they can be a part of the fellowship of that church, but they can do so in a way that is friendly to their particular needs. And sometimes people might just have a greater struggle with social anxiety and depression in some seasons of their life, and others might just have it lifelong. And some of them might just find tricks to be able to participate, but still, even if you can get someone that's struggling in that department and it seems like everything's fine, again, you can't really hear what's going on in their mind. And if we can help those people to get the most out of the message, fellowship time, then we ought to do it. So these are my suggestions, a few of my suggestions just off of the top of my head. We need to create more quiet, less crowded environments, options for people. I went to a church where the main amount of people were on the first floor, and then they had a second floor with less seating. And I went there one time and I noticed that there were a lot of people not sitting in the available seating on that second floor, but they were sitting all the way some of them were sitting down and some of them were standing up right next to the steps where you would go down. And so I thought that was a little strange, but when I started feeling a little anxious, social anxiety being there, I thought to myself, well, maybe I would feel more comfortable like standing or sitting like way in the back where those people are at. So come to think about it, maybe those people were struggling with the same thing as I was in that moment. What are some things that we can help when it comes to this? I think that we can be less strict about how quiet and how still everything needs to be during a message or throughout the service. We should be more casual in our gatherings. I'm sure that in some places of the world, there are screaming babies and children running around, and people are able to continue to focus on what's going on, and people are gracious about, being parents is hard, and I know it can be a distraction for the speaker, but I think that speakers need to just get over that and accept that whoever wants to listen to you and not be distracted will be doing so. And other people also need to get used to like being able to ignore distractions, because when people that have social anxiety are sitting there and their mind is not focusing. You would not be able to tell because they're sitting there and they look like they're listening to you, but they're not, because they're thinking about, oh my gosh, it's so quiet here. Nobody's moving. What if I would really like to get up, go for a walk, come back, and everybody's going to stare at me and everybody's going to think I'm so rude. And so the list goes on and on. So I think that if we change this expectation of everyone has to be still, nobody can leave before the service is over, and all of these little rules that we've added to the church culture, then it would be a more realistic and more like less tense place for people with social anxiety to come and get the most out of your actual message. That would be just in general, like for the whole like church gathering. But how about also creating some even more casual environments where people can just go there if they feel like it's too much, and they need another like place where they can just listen to the message and just like walk around or just have a meal or something. That might be helpful. Maybe people can even offer like headphones, and if you're like in a loud place outside, for example, where the screen is at, maybe you guys can give them some headphones where they can listen to the message while at the same time feel comfortable, because everyone around them is not looking at them but is doing their own thing. Another thing is online options. The coronavirus pandemic did a great thing in forcing churches to begin to use online things more than they would have. Zoom was so helpful with keeping people connected during the middle of the week and like doing further Bible studies and things like that. Churches should use this option even if like we're gathering again indoors. A lot of people don't feel comfortable going to a small community group, life group, because although it's like it's a smaller amount of people, but the format is usually the same. Everyone is looking at each other, everyone has to be quiet, and there's a certain time, you have to stay there for this amount of time, or else, you're going to be the one that doesn't follow the rules and all of that. So a lot of shame, unspoken shame associated to that. Definitely leave online options available for if your church is offering courses. Even sometimes they're mandatory. People with social anxiety can probably focus and learn more if you allow them to feel comfortable, like doing it online. Maybe even offering like go into this room and go through this tutorial, and it's just a quiet like place, or not so quiet, like the headphones idea again. Just be creative when it comes to creating less stressful situations for those people that are in need of those options. Probably one of the most important options I think churches should implement is and consider is providing professional and biblical counseling options for these people, that they can walk with these people like weekly and receive the help that they need. Also, they would be able to talk about how they feel when they come to church. I'm not sure if people have that opportunity like in a secular type of counseling. So who should be providing those resources? The church. The church knows perfectly about how everything is set up, and maybe pastors can talk to these counselors and get some feedback about how they can better help the people that are struggling in their church. Another thing, don't assume that socialization has to happen in your particular preference way. Like because you feel very special when it's time to shake someone's hand and talk to them, don't assume that that's the only way people will feel like they connected with someone. For someone that's very introverted, for example, or has high social anxiety, even just a person smiling at them and saying hi can make them feel like, hey, I feel good. Someone in church knows me. And it doesn't necessarily have to go further than that. How are you doing? But at the same time, I have heard that there are other people that have their own particular needs where it's like, it's way stressful to have like greeters. And it's like something that they don't look forward to, like having to like try to, seem friendly and like you just don't know what that person is going to say or ask you. So I know that there's a lot of people also that are confused about how do I approach someone that seems so standoffish, you know? And one thing that I think you can consider is, okay, this person it looks very standoffish, but they're just standing there like all by themselves. They seem like they don't want to be here, but they're there. So think about it, if this person looks like they really don't want to be there, but they're there, they're willing to go through that uncomfortable feeling because they do want someone to approach them, probably. And if they look like they can't have a conversation with you, then it's important not to take it personal, but just to think, okay, maybe right now it's not a good time. Let me try again at another time, and in another way. Maybe I can offer something to them. Maybe I could say a joke. Maybe, find different ways, because not everyone also has the same social skills, the same upbringing. Maybe they weren't taught how to socialize. There shouldn't be any pressure, I feel. If people don't want to shake someone's hand, then why are we forcing them to? I heard someone say one time that, and this lady was the pastor's wife, that she would feel so anxious during the greeting time in the middle of the gathering that she would always go hide in the restroom during that time. And although later on I think she did learn to just say hi in her own way during that time, think about it from, like, if you're not the pastor's wife has to be there, right? But maybe someone else, it would be too much for them and they might not want to come back. So just keep that under consideration. And probably the last and maybe one of the most important things to be mindful of is to not allow any form of shame having to do with anxiety, because people with anxiety problems already experience so much shame. They're in the minority of the population, so they already are feeling like an outcast, feeling like, why can't I do these simple things, seemingly simple things that other people can do? People might treat them like an outcast too, like, this person is weird. Is this person demonically possessed even? Some people might take it that far. Some people might say, oh, if you're dealing with depression, then you're having a bunch of evil spirits that's at the root of that. Also, well-meaning pastors might say, hey, messages like, you can have a life without anxiety, but that might not be realistic for everyone. And so maybe praying for these people that God will help them with their challenges in life, with their anxiety, that there will be enough grace from God to help them from every anxiety situation, might make a better sermon than just giving them false hope that God will just completely eliminate anxiety in everyone's life. Because maybe that is the case for some people, that they are able to just be free of anxiety, and that's wonderful. But it's very discouraging for people that don't experience that in their life. And they might get the idea that I can't talk to my pastor about my anxiety problems because he preached that one time against anxiety and he's going to look down on me. He might not want to give me an opportunity to serve in church because of my particular struggle with anxiety. That also brings up how you should provide opportunities for everyone, even if they are dealing with anxiety and depression problems. make sure that, you see what are their strengths, where they would be able to contribute to the church, in how they would be able to. So being flexible about people's needs and things like that would be a good thing, instead of just having like this standard up here where anyone with anxiety won't be able to serve. So if you are someone that isn't dealing with social anxiety, and you happen to notice someone in your church or in your life outside of your church that seems a little stressed in social situations, seems a little antisocial, why don't you start praying for the person and asking God for wisdom on how God can use you to be a blessing in that person's life? Often, since people with social anxiety are not engaging in a lot of social events, they don't have as many opportunities to make friendships. Often, unfortunately, the expectations of friends is that you make friendships by going out and having these experiences out and about, which might be very difficult for some people. Also, I find that very social people have so many friends, too many friends to have time to be a friend to people that don't have any friends. I think God teaches us to not be so self-absorbed and not just be living just trying to fill our own cup, but to serve other people. And so if you are one of those people that has too many friends to be able to be a friend to someone that doesn't have any friends, then let me encourage you to drop one of those friends that has enough friends in their own lives, perhaps, or give them less of your time, less of your priority, and why don't you spend that time on someone that needs more of your friendship than perhaps the other person? All suggestions, all food for thought for you to consider prayerfully. Of course, I hope that you have found this video insightful in some ways, and feel free to leave your comments, your questions, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have below. Or you can email me if maybe you are a leader at church and you would like to hear more about what it's like for someone that deals with anxiety. You want to hear more about what my experience has been, maybe other more specific suggestions. I would be very happy to have a conversation with you. So you can email me at asksusanmorales@gmail.com, or just go to my website susanmorales.org and leave me a message there, and I would be really happy to talk with you and connect with you about this. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that if you are someone that's struggling with social anxiety, that you will continue to take your challenges, your struggles to the Lord and ask for His help, because He has the grace that you need. Throughout every anxious moment that you have, God's grace is enough to carry you through those moments. And if you find yourself being so lonely in your experience, God is enough as well, and He can provide that companionship that you are really needing in your life. He can bring healing. He could bring that sense of understanding that you might be lacking in your life. And I encourage you to continue to go to your church, even if you feel like there are no opportunities for you, for your struggles. And, I pray that hopefully your church will be more sensitive to your particular needs as well.